Nobody really talks about how weird it is to transition from RN to NP. Because one minute, you're the experienced nurse that everybody can depend on, and the next minute, you'll feel like the dumbest person in the room. And let me tell you something, that transition will humble you quick. People think becoming an NP is more money, more respect, less bedside, but baby, let me tell you, that is not it at all. Now, you are the decision maker, you sign the orders, you carry the liability. You have patients looking to you for answers. Meanwhile, you're like, Lord, please don't let me miss something. And after almost 20 years in healthcare and now practicing as a nurse practitioner, I want to talk about the real transition that nobody prepares you for. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Erica, the neighborhood NP, family nurse practitioner, entrepreneur, healthcare advocate, and your clinical bestie for the hard stuff. Over here, we talk honestly about healthcare, nursing, caregiving, burnout, and what this career actually looks like behind the scenes. So if you're an RN thinking about starting NP school, already in NP school, or a new grad feeling completely overwhelmed, this one is for you. One thing I hate about nursing is how people always talk about, oh, are you going to become an NP? Like it's just a casual upgrade. Like, oh, you'll be fine. You already know everything. You've been a nurse forever. No, being a good RN and being a good NP are not the same skill set. As an RN, your brain is working on carrying out the plan, monitoring, assessing, catching changes, escalating concerns. And as an NP, you create the plan. And the mental shift is huge. Now you're diagnosing, interpreting labs differently, managing medications differently, thinking long-term, and balancing risks. And honestly, the first time somebody asks, so what do you think is causing this? Whew, the silence in your brain is loud. I want to talk about my first NP job specifically, because I think a lot of people can relate to this. I was a primary care provider at a nursing home. I had 110 patients. I was responsible for acute illness, chronic illness, and then the psych NP basically quit, and then the pain management provider basically quit. And I was responsible for all of this. Yes, I had a collaborating physician who would answer when I called, but there was no mentorship. It was basically me left to figure it out, which I kind of like because I do like figuring things out on my own. It helps me to retain the information, but still very scary. Because in my mind, I'm thinking, I didn't go to psych school. I didn't specifically study pain management, but now I'm responsible for it because nobody else was. And that's a reality of lots of NP jobs, especially your first one. And there was not a single lecture in NP school that could have prepared me for that. Can we talk about the confidence crash? Because nobody warned me about that either. As an experienced RN, you feel comfortable. You know workflow, you know emergencies, you know how to survive chaos. Then you become an NP and suddenly start second guessing everything. You leave work replaying patient encounters in your head like, should I have ordered that? Did I miss something? Maybe I should have just adjusted that medication. Wait, was that murmur there before? And what's crazy is you can have years of nursing experience and still feel like a baby clinician again. That part messes with people mentally, especially high achievers, because so many of us are used to being good at what we do. Then suddenly you're uncomfortable again, learning again, feeling uncertain again. And honestly, that's normal. Now let's tell the truth that nobody wants to say out loud. NP school alone does not magically make you feel prepared. And I said what I said. In nurse practitioner school, you're learning a foundation, concepts. You're learning how to think differently. But the real learning starts when you actually start practicing. And that first NP job, baby, that is a residency, even if no one wants to call it that. Real patience, real decisions, and most of all, real consequences. And there is no one coming behind you to double check your thinking. There is no adultier adult in that room. It is you. And that realization is both empowering and terrifying at the same time. The pressure of being an NP is just different. As an RN, your shift ends eventually. And I'll be honest with you, sometimes I do miss that. Because as an NP, patients follow you home mentally. You'll be in Target thinking about somebody's potassium. You'll wake up at 2 a.m. at a dead sleep, trying to figure out if you should have ordered imaging. You become very aware that your decisions have a great impact on others' lives. And you're not quite a doctor, but you're more than a nurse. And sometimes that in-between gets real uncomfortable, especially when you're working with physicians who do not fully respect what you do. That part is real and nobody talks about it enough. Now let me say something before we go any further. I will never act like bedside nursing isn't hard. Because baby, these knees and back, the night shift delirium, the emotional exhaustion, I worked bedside through COVID and even after that. I worked office jobs specifically so I could take my kids to and from school. I know what that life cost. And the internet loves to pit RNs against nurse practitioners, like it's some sort of weird competition. Meanwhile, healthcare would collapse without nurses, and healthcare needs competent providers as well. You can respect both. This is not a complicated concept. Now I want to tell you about my personal journey, because if you are sitting somewhere right now thinking you missed your shot, this part is for you. I had my daughter on July 19th, 2006. I didn't have time to think about if I was ready. All I knew is I needed to find a way to take care of me and my baby. So I started my LPN program in September of 2006. I didn't do any thinking. I just signed up. And I finished in December of 2007. Yep, that's where the whole thing started. A brand new baby and a decision that I wasn't gonna wait until later. I was gonna figure it out now. I worked as an LPN for about 5 or 6 years. And then I decided I was ready for the fast track RN through Excelsior College. And I want to be clear about something. I studied. I knew my stuff. And before I left to go take that test out weekend, I would have bet you my child that I was going to pass and come home with an associate's of nursing. But I didn't. I failed. In Bumble, you know the word, Tennessee, I had to drive back home to Georgia and tell my family and friends that I didn't pass. And at that moment, and trigger warning, driving off the side of that mountain felt like a better idea. But God kept me, and I made it back home to my family, and they didn't love me any less. You see, I had banked so much on that test, borrowed money from my family to even take it because it cost $2,000. But once I got home, I cried, and I mean cried a lot, to the point where one of my coworkers had to go out and say, hey, nobody else asked Erica about that test, okay? But after I stopped crying, I came up with a plan, and I looked into Indiana State's LPN to BSN program and applied, but I didn't get in. So I took a couple of classes, and at that point I was like, you know what? I'm gonna just get a general studies bachelor degree. I wasn't too far short of getting the credits for a general studies bachelor's degree. And I figured I'll just go to a second degree program because that had to be easier, right? But then God spoke to me one day and said, today's the deadline. Send in the paperwork. And reluctantly, I pulled that crumpled up paper out of my book bag, flattened it out, and scanned it in. And they accepted me this time. And I was so excited. So I went on to complete that program and graduate. And then I went right back for my master's in nursing and family nurse practitioner. LPN for 13 years, RN for 5, and now a family nurse practitioner. Your comeback does not have to be pretty. It just has to happen. Here's the real reason why I became a nurse practitioner. After almost 20 years in healthcare, I knew I needed to set myself up to do something different long term. So make sure you ask yourself honestly before you make that decision. Are you just doing it for the money? Because honestly, you could work one extra shift and probably make the same starting out. Long term, the money is better, but do you really care for the people? Because the difference between an RN and NP isn't just physical, it's mental. It is mentally draining in a complete different way than working at bedside. And I just knew that my body couldn't do bedside forever. So I built something that could take me further. Because I believe in using every single God-given ability. And for me, that's health education, public speaking, content creation, generational wealth. Becoming an NP will not be my final destination, but it is a key piece to the foundation. So if you're an RN thinking about becoming an NP, or a new NP struggling with the transition, or somebody that already feels like they missed their shot, I need you to know this. Feeling overwhelmed does not mean you're failing. It means you care. And that crumpled application at the bottom of my bag changed my entire life. If this video resonated with you, make sure you subscribe and drop in the comment, what has been the hardest part of the transition for you in healthcare? Because trust me, you are definitely not alone. This is Erica, the Neighborhood NP. Thanks for spending some time with me, and until next time.